Welcome, peeps. This is IHU 101, podcast number 2. And we're very excited to have the production of our second podcast. As you know, we have 5 separate acts on this series, and we've already viewed the first act, which was Very Sacre Cantores. Now we are into another completely different style and completely different act. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Erik Ryden to our show, and we're going to present your questions in just a minute. But before we start, I'm going to give Erik a chance to talk a little bit about himself. And for those of you that do not know me or know any of my history, Erik and I played together in in a couple of different bands, I guess.
Yeah.
And I've known him for more years than I care to recite.
It's pretty ridiculous now.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. So Erik, why don't you tell us just a little bit about you?
I grew up in Midland, right here, and started playing music when I was 4. I don't remember, but I've seen the pictures. And I went to Dow High School, went to Alma College, started playing guitar heavily around that time, 20 years old or so, and have been riding that thing since then. So that's the short story.
Okay, all right. Just for color's sake and things like that, I also know your parents quite well.
Yes.
I've performed with your parents before, Midland Symphony and other areas. So tell us a little about Mom and Dad.
Mom went to Western and Michigan State. Music education major. She taught orchestra in Midland for 40 years or so. Dad went to Central in Michigan, was in the drum line, played cymbals in both marching bands. And when I was growing up, they were always flying all over the place, playing one gig or another. My mom taught private lessons at home. Dad played with Men of Music and at all the churches, and it was always there's always something going on in my house.
Sure.
Somebody was always leaving.
Your mom was at Central for a while.
Yep, she was orchestra at Central and a lot of the elementary schools around town over the years. I don't know if there's a building she didn't teach it, really. Yeah. 40 years.
Very musical family.
Yeah. So yeah, I was blessed to be surrounded with music of all types from as early as I can remember.
Sure. Well, I first met Erik when he was still in high school, and I was at Dow High, and it was the musicals that I first you and I first got to work together on, and then we started.
Do you remember what they were? Do you remember what all 4 of them were?
Wow, I remember Grease.
Okay.
I remember Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yep, that's 2.
I remember some corny, hokey thing.
Phantom of the Country
Phantom
Opera.
of the Country Opera, yes.
And
And
the
there
4th
was
one
one more. Yikes.
Footloose.
Footloose,
Yeah.
that's right.
Footloose.
Yeah, I forgot.
I
all
can't
about
believe we
Footloose. Yeah.
got this.
That was fun.
Yeah,
Fun
those
times.
were good. The Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, that's when the band was under the stage, right? We were
That's
under
Yeah.
there was a whole stage under us, and I had a football game or a track meet or something, so I only played 2 of the 4 or something.
That was our very
Yeah,
first
that was
show.
the first one.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Not too long ago.
No, longer than I care to admit.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's get to these questions,
Yeah,
and
sure.
then more of you will come out, I'm sure. But this these questions, I should say, a lot of them are introspective, so don't be shy if there's something that you want to share. But this first question: has your love or appreciation for music changed since restarting your solo career? This is a 2-part question. And how about from when you joined Life Size Ghost?
Wow. Okay.
And before you start that,
Yeah, I took
Prost.
yes. Thank you.
don't you wish you were here?
I wish I lived here. Okay. I've never had like a lack of appreciation for the blessings I received, and basically a free music education at home,
Sure.
and having all these opportunities in town as a child. But there was that time, like, by the time I was 18, I was burnt out of this stuff. Every night, going and waiting in the pews at church for mom to get out of rehearsal, or waiting for mom and dad to get home so the babysitter wasn't there, or stuff like that. So, and then by the time that my sister and I got older, we were involved in 100 different things, musically and non-musically too. So by the time I was 18, just trying to stay abreast of all that had got me pretty like, all right, I'm glad I play music, but like, let's go do something else.
Sure.
And I never took for granted that I had that instilled in me. But there were years, like basically until I was done playing football, I wasn't really spending the time on it, and I was just kind of okay being like an average. I was like pretty good for somebody that didn't take it real seriously.
Sure.
But I was always just okay in my own skin, and also knowing, I was never lying to myself about where I was at. Like, you're not first chair in the orchestra. Well, this is why. It's because you're at football practice for 6 hours.
Tell us a little bit about football.
I loved to do it when I was a child, growing up through high school, and in college it was a lot of fun, but it was different.
What position?
So I played all over the field, mostly running back over the years, but played a lot of defense too. So, and that, opened a lot of new doors for me. Where
Not many people associate football with musicians.
So
I was a football player too, and so it's kind of hard for people to imagine.
Yeah, but it's the same kind of dedication. You have to like, and it's when you grow up, you realize that it was time that you were putting in.
Yeah.
So I always say now, like, even, you think I'm young, but I'm feeling pretty old right now. But the years, the days go slowly, but the years go really fast.
Oh yeah.
So
let me tell you, they're gonna get fast.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with that. Not to get too far off the track, but I mean, I've always, football and music were always hand in hand. For me, the first chair cello when I was in high school was on the football team. I believe as a captain too. So it's weird having us guys in the, that wasn't normal.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Orchestra.
Yeah, so that's been unusual.
But it was great. Midland offers like a well-rounded situation for everybody growing up. So I feel very lucky. And as far as when I joined Life Size Ghost, I was coming off of just being in some bands that were like playing songs from when we were a kid, and just writing, it was like the Jack Johnson era. So we were writing beach songs, no beach nearby. So, and then Life Size Ghost was this whole other thing where it was like my first band where everybody had grown into their musical self.
Yeah.
And then when we got together, we were all such good friends that like the music kind of wrote itself.
Yeah.
So that was my appreciation for the process. I realized that it was something that you don't just read about the Rolling Stones doing. Like, you can actually capture that for yourself.
Right.
And that is like that's my favorite part, is writing with collaborators.
Yeah.
Really. So like, and then when we took Life Size Ghost around, around Michigan and a couple times around the country, it was really nice to have, your own thing that you were working very hard at, and you cared about the notes because you wrote them. Just to have, whether it be 2 or 2,000 people appreciating your show, whatever you put on, or your album or whatever, and that was kind of like the series of firsts for me in all those categories. Having been on stage since 5, I never really played my own music until I was 25.
So you're at that point, you're living the dream.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't really realize
Yeah.
that living the dream doesn't necessarily mean you're making it and you're on top of the world.
No. And we definitely, I feel very fortunate to have been able to stay in that band for so long too, because when you grow up and you get out of that school and the dish line goes away, all of a sudden that's your half an hour of the day that you got to spend doing that,
Yeah.
So, and but yeah, that was definitely just being in that moment. And I think we knew that not that as good as it gets or anything, but like I think we knew that we were kind of doing it when,
Sure.
when it was happening. You know?
Sure.
And yeah, having the time of our lives.
Awesome.
Fast and loose with the rules.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, this next question is kind of related. How has your experience in the band influenced your solo career?
Oh, it has like 100% everything to do with it. Anytime you collaborate or you play with other people or anytime you're in a creative environment, you evolve.
Right.
So when I was given a chance to do that for like 8 years or 10 years, you know, you learn something about yourself every day when you're paying attention. Now, a lot of that time, we thought we were paying attention, but we were just having a party.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
But yeah, like every moment that I spend musically, it's sort of like a class. And then you take what you can from that moment, and you can't shake it. It's just with you.
Yeah.
So there's been times, for example, when I thought that I was a better guitar player then than now, because I didn't learn that next thing that got me distracted to do all this different shit that I'm doing. And I was like several times, especially when you're practicing, like I think I'm like, man, I'll listen to old recordings and be like, how did I think of that or something like that. So you can evolve yourself out of the sweet spot too.
Exactly.
So, but every show you become more aware of yourself as a performer and of what you like, because there's not one formula for whatever you're trying to do. So
True.
You just kind of got to find what you're doing and what makes you comfortable.
True.
And
Absolutely.
yeah. So I guess taking it into my solo show, it's definitely different. But like every single performance leading up to, even my last performance leading up to my next one.
Right.
I learned something that day that I can use on Wednesday.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Yeah. I think you're right. I think you always take things with you.
Yeah.
From any experience that you have. Is there an instrument that you still want to learn how to play in the future?
Well, the answer would be every instrument. I am a trash horns player, wind player. Probably won't ever be able to do that. I'm all right with that. But it's more like a style, man. I would love to be able to play slide guitar. I would love to be able to play.
You play any dobro?
I do, but like again, not in front of people. I don't.
Okay. It's like me and the cello.
Yeah. So, and one day through tinkering, maybe I'll get there. Like I'll write one song on a resonator or something, and it'll get out there. But until I get better, but that's still a guitar, I guess. Still a picked string instrument, but like all of them, banjo, mandolin. I wish I was pro at all of them.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a tough question to ask any accomplished musician, because you always want to become better at what you're already doing.
Yeah.
But you also have this, man, I wish I could play harmonica.
Well, that's the thing, and I always tell people that are like, oh man, I wish I would have played an instrument. I'm like, well, luckily it's never too late. But like, what's going to be tough is your attention span.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you can get in on something, especially if you're getting a lot of like positive reinforcement and like the shows are going well, mom and dad are there, like
right.
That's one of the best feelings you can have as a kid.
Right. Yeah. Positive reinforcement, absolutely.
But then so like I always say, if I could have a superpower, it would be to know every song in every key on every instrument with all the lyrics and have the vocal range.
Right.
For every song ever written.
That'd be awesome.
Kumbaya to whatever.
You'd never sleep.
No.
You never sleep.
But that would be like I guess, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Now this is kind of a tough question. As I read this question, I was, as I read these questions that you guys submit, I think about my own musical career. So interesting question, and I'm interested to hear your take. Has musical performance always come easy to you?
Yes, but it was yes, and for a while it's out of ignorance.
Okay, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because often you've heard people probably say this to you, I'm sure. Man, you make it look so easy, and and I don't mean to sound arrogant, but half the time it's like, well,
It's pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
I mean, yeah. I found out that I wasn't a great dancer early on, so I picked up an instrument.
Right. Well, I mean, and if it wasn't easy to us, if we always looked like we were struggling and, just having a difficult time up there, I mean, I wouldn't do it.
No. And there's a couple nights where I made it difficult for myself, but that's the only reason it was difficult.
Right. It's not to say that we don't ever fuck up.
No.
It just means that if it doesn't come easy to you, you probably should find something.
Right. Yeah. It was always, and partly like I got to thank my parents for putting me on stage at 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then also I had great examples growing up of like watching people do it, and all your parents' friends, and they kind of make an impression on you too, and they're all performers.
Right.
Whether it was like the guys on Dad's softball team, they're out there performing at softball. The guys at church in the choir are in there performing in the choir. So I was always, 10 feet from somebody that was doing some sort of performing.
Right.
So when it came to me to finally like start doing it outside of a school environment,
right,
it did come pretty easily.
And it's not to knock that question. That's a great question.
It is a good question because you don't really get asked that seriously.
No,
because nobody really wants to hear your answer. You just want to say it to you.
Exactly. I mean, what if someone asked me that, for example, what if I'd said, no, you know what, I struggle every day.
Yeah.
I go home and practice 14 hours every day. It was just total bullshit.
I have a psychiatrist on hold.
So I mean, the nature of the question is great because I think, at least speaking for myself, and I think for you as well, for most talented players, yes, it does come easy, and thank God it does, because if it did,
like, you always want it to go better. I mean, I've never played a show that was like every note.
Yeah, exactly.
And like when you're young too, it doesn't matter how good you are, but you think you're awesome.
True.
Like my senior year high school orchestra, man, I remember that like it was the coolest thing I ever did. Right? You watch the video, it's pretty good. But it's
but watching yourself.
But you thought you were doing really good though.
Yes,
and it was coming easily.
Sure.
So yeah.
No, I 100% concur with that answer. That's awesome. Okay, so this is a great question too. Why do you feel you relate so much to jazz, and what do you feel that says about you as a person?
Well, I've always been weird. When you don't look like your classmates growing up in this town, it's kind of strange. They don't know what to do with it.
Talk about that a little bit.
Everybody's parents, and bless their heart, they have a different explanation of how you treat people that are of different backgrounds. And for the most part, I had a splendid experience growing up. But like, there's always those times, man. And like, I was very good at just like brushing it off, but I don't know. There's always that like possibility that something's gonna come in and bust your day open a little bit there.
This is not a question that was submitted. This is one I had.
Right.
I saw that one. Do you think living in Midland made it easier?
In some ways. I think that the people are generally better hearted in Midland than most places.
More accepting.
On the surface, yes.
Yes.
Until you move away.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden in Grand Rapids, I'm not weird at all. I'm just a normal dude.
Right.
So then there's no need for that like accepting heart there, because there's already that acceptance or lack of.
Yeah.
Depending on what street you're living on.
Right.
But Midland is definitely a bubble. And it's generally a nice place.
Sure.
And generally people are nice to everybody.
Sure.
Now, it wasn't a hayride.
No.
But I'm not like, I don't harbor any resentment. I think it was important for me to move away to have a realistic view of the world.
Sure. Absolutely.
And that's probably true of everybody in their hometown, no matter how big or small.
Oh yeah, and just ask anybody who lived someplace else and then moved to Midland.
That must be something. That must be something.
Quite a difference. I didn't know what true culture shock was.
Yeah.
Until I moved here. Okay. Anything
I don't
else
know
you
if
want to say about that?
I don't know if I answered that question completely.
Well, the question was how do you feel you relate to jazz?
So
what does that say about you?
Because I was always some sort of social chameleon, because you have to be. And the expressive nature of jazz. And then like for me, so like I'm on there's two sides to every Schwartz, right? There's the good side and the bad side. Well, like there's like jazz, which is like the Schwartz, and then there's like the blues, which is like what I completely relate to, which is they're hand in hand, almost one and the same, but you know, whereas jazz is like an expression of, I don't know how to put this.
Well,
jazz is very fluid, whereas blues is like more like you're expressing yourself in this parameter.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that, because the question is sort of suggestive that everything is steeped in jazz, even blues, and that's not necessarily true.
So, as I understand it, right?
And you don't have to be careful with me.
Oh, I know. As I understand it, the jazz and the blues came about roughly at the same time, but there was two distinctly different groups of people playing.
Yes.
And so I identify with those people that, not on Broadway.
I would agree with that, absolutely.
And musically too, regardless of genre, even my solo set now, it's not really mainstream here.
No, but I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said it was for two different groups of people. Jazz was sort of uptown.
Yeah.
You could find it in clubs. You could find it, but blues was not in the mainstream. It wasn't in the clubs. It was not in the high class clubs.
Right.
And I think because blues was a lot more personal, it was a lot more introspective.
Yes.
You look at the artists, you look at the recording artists through history.
Yes. And we've only ever heard a sliver of them that existed because they weren't recorded.
Yeah.
And they weren't taken around the country.
Yeah.
And they didn't play outside of their 3 county areas.
Right.
And there's, even if you can name 200 original bluesmen, there was more than 200 there,
right?
And I can find 2,000 jazz records.
Right, exactly.
From the same year,
Right.
So.
And that is not also to not suggest that a blues scale is not a blues scale anymore if it's played in jazz.
Right,
it is the same.
No, this is,
But, the style is...
Yeah, so that, it always, came out in my personality to, express those feelings, whatever they were that I was having at the time. And, I definitely would say that I've kind of walked hand in hand in that way.
Sure.
Pretty much my whole life.
So I'm gonna take a little pause here before we get to the next question, just because this kind of opened this door. Everyone has listened to the recording that I made, and while I'm very limited in my recording equipment. I didn't bring my entire studio with me, so I had was my gimbal and my phone.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, decent recordings, and I think it captured a great deal of your personal delivery of blues, and so I wanted to interject a little bit here, and we'll take a listen to this before Erik answers. Hoochie Coochie Man, and I think I mentioned to you or remarked to you I was really glad that you pulled that one up, because it's a cool tune. So let's listen to it, and then I'm going to ask Erik a couple of questions. We'll listen to not the whole thing, but we'll listen to a little bit of it.
Gypsy woman told my mother, day before I was born, got a boy child coming, gonna be a son of a gun, gonna make all you girls jump and shout, whole world gonna know what this all about. Oh, I hear her. Everybody know I'm here. You know I'm that hoochie coochie man. Everybody know I'm here. Got a black hat bone, got a mojo too, got a Johnny Cockaroo. I'm gonna mess with you, gonna make all you girls leave me by my hand. Whole world gonna know I'm that hoochie coochie man. You don't know I'm here. Everybody know I'm here. You know I'm that hoochie coochie man. Everybody know I'm here.
So, tell us a little bit about two things. Hoochie Coochie Man is probably one of my all-time favorites.
Absolutely.
But I also love Dust My Broom, and I love Dust My Broom for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
Probably none of them that have to do with anything related to the words of that song.
Right?
But yeah. But tell me, give me your take on Hoochie Coochie Man.
So, Muddy Waters, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest. Probably the grandfather of all the greatest. You know, Robert Johnson being the great.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So Muddy and everything that Chicago scene from the late 50s up until the early 70s was. And it was just that attitude, but like the blues is like a joke, right? I've heard an interview where some lady was saying, you know, the first two lines are like the setup, and then the hook is the punchline.
Yes.
So that's one of the best songs, you know. And Muddy was a pro. If you listen to the Chess Records box set or whatever, it's like 100 songs, and they're all just excellent.
Yeah.
And Hoochie Coochie Man describes me.
Okay. So yeah, you're gonna have to ask you to get into that a little bit more.
No. Not lately so much. But, you know, you play 30 years of music, you have some stories. So Hoochie Coochie Man, it's in my range. It's easy to teach your bandmates. And I really just love that attitude of the Chicago, like,
Yep.
you know, and the more and more I play, because I just started playing it a couple years ago after like knowing the song since I was a kid, you know. But you can see the life of the song on the faces of the people in the room. So when I put it in the set, it was there to stay.
Oh.
from the first time I did it, I'm like, okay, Hoochie Coochie Man. And then I just played it even last weekend in Tawas. Everybody loved it.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, that song is a personal favorite of mine. Probably put it on my top 10 of the blues. Yeah. And you know, Clapton's done. Everybody's done it. Everybody has done Hoochie Coochie Man.
Some of them
pretty badly, but some of them great. You know,
Yes.
like a couple of Clapton's live versions are better than anything that he recorded.
I would agree.
So yeah, and then Dust My Broom, an original Robert Johnson, who again everybody's done. Who's the one that we? There's so many.
Well, while you're thinking of that, Robert Johnson is alleged to have said one day that he made a deal with the devil, that he sold his soul
Yeah.
to the devil to be able to play the guitar
Right.
as well as he did, which he
Yeah.
played.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a great line, a great comeback to that from the older brother of civil rights activist Medgar Evers, who was assassinated in '63. Anyway, his older brother was a DJ in Jackson, Mississippi, and he would play the blues 24/7. And he said of his brother's, the trial of his brother's murderer, of his brother's assassin, which was he was a Klansman. I can't think of his name right now, but he said, if you'll see that son of a bitch gets fried, I won't sell my soul to play guitar, but I'll sell my soul for that. So yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. I think we've all kind of had that moment as musicians where it's like, just make this work for me, please. And you can call it selling your soul or taking a leap of faith or, you know, praying, whichever angle you want to take on that, wherever you're from.
Right.
I think as a musician, even most amateur musicians have had that moment where it's like, please,
let me get through this.
let me be able to do this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that Dust My Broom, one of the original 32 tracks that he recorded.
Something like that.
Just brilliant.
Yeah. And you said something also a few minutes ago that just struck something with me, and I said, I think originally, Dust My Broom I love for a number of reasons. Probably none of those have to do anything with the words in the song.
Because I'll screw with the words from town to town too.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Change the last verse to fit the county you're playing in.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing.
Yeah. But the style and the mood of the piece is what has always driven me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you get this. I used to get this wherever I would go. If I was around friends, if there was a piano there, you know, can't you play any blues? Can't you play any blues?
Yeah.
And Dust My Broom was something I didn't always come out
and
with.
it's all, and that's another thing. Like, it's always, no matter who you're playing with, you can teach them on the fly to play Dust My Broom.
Yeah.
They don't know what key, they don't know what, even if you've got somebody that can only play with one finger, put it right there.
Yes. No, it's a great tune. Why did you choose I mean, I know you love Hoochie Coochie Man and the reasons, and you've alluded to that, but why did you include Dust My Broom in that set?
I like to. Well, that was the Robert Bradley day, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, you know, getting an opportunity to play after Robert Bradley.
Who Robert was.
So Robert Bradley was a street musician from Detroit in the late '60s, who I don't know if he's been performing the whole time, but he performed up until a couple years ago, I believe, with a band. He's been recorded a couple times. So he's a legendary busker on the east side of Detroit. And then so he got sick, and they wanted to throw him one more show so he could perform for the last time. So then Alicia asked me to play after, so they would have some blues to listen to after he got done playing his last show. So that was a huge honor for me, having seen Robert in Saginaw before, and then talking to my mom who grew up in Warren, like she had heard of Robert Bradley even, you know, so that's a connection. That's 60 years old.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
So when I was putting that set together, I had great musicians on it, so I knew I could just kind of do whatever I wanted that day. And Dust My Broom kind of was the one that Robert Johnson that we decided to do. I think we probably did Crossroad too.
You did.
I
I don't know that was in the set that I recorded, but
yeah, we tried to keep it kind of old school as much as a 3-piece can do, you know,
Yeah.
for that. So.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah, that was a great thing.
congrats again to Joe and Keith. I mean, excellent team.
Yeah, those guys are, Joe's like one of one.
Yes.
On that bass guitar.
Yes.
So it's always an honor to be on stage with him. And Keith, he's been putting in that time the last 10 years too, so the rest of us.
Yeah. That's the first time I heard him, but really fine
good.
player, man.
And he's only getting better. I'm looking forward to working with him more in the future too.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was a fun set. Dust went through, man. like you said, it really doesn't have much to do with the words, does it?
I mean, it's funny because that after filming it for the podcast and listening to it for the podcast, I was listening to the words and I was like, damn, I can hear myself saying this. I can hear myself singing it, and then that's a completely separate relation I have to that song. It's never has been about the words for me.
Right.
That particular song. There's lots of other blues songs that I could say, I really relate to that.
Yeah.
But that one, for some reason, I don't know. It's.
Well, that's a good one. Whenever I'm out of town and not playing, and I'll go see a band, or I'll go, and if it ever comes down to sitting in, that's what I say. I say, you guys know Dust Went Through.
Yeah. Well,
that's my out of town.
It's just a cool tune and one that, for lack of a better phrase, it touches my heart.
Yeah.
I'll even start crying sometimes just hearing that, because it's just it's the blues, man. It's the blues. So your voice. Let's talk, because everybody here knows I'm a vocal professor, and I had heard you sing, but not like that.
Right.
And so I'm going to pay you the highest compliment I can pay you in saying that you really have captured that style. I mean, it was authentic. So there's my word.
Thank you.
Authentic.
Because I always feel like an imposter because I'm not from the
Sure.
I think, a lot of people probably feel the same until somebody tells them that they're not, But part of it is that I have a shit range, so I can't be all fancy, and I've never had a real lesson, so I don't know any of the tricks. So like you add about 20,000 cigarettes to that recipe, and you sound yeah, and you sound like I sound. But I appreciate that, because one of the things I love about blues music is, like, you don't have to be a maestro singer.
No,
you do not have to be a great guitar player, because whatever your combination, or whatever instrument you might play, whatever combination of that voice and that instrument and whatever you are doing, that makes the pie, man.
Yes, it does.
So in the blues, where in my opinion, nobody's looking for the next anybody.
True.
Because everybody is their own.
Right, exactly.
There's not a formula, because so many of them, and you can argue this, but so many of them have worked for people.
Right.
So my voice is a complete accident of really having no training, but just loving to sing.
That's it.
And finding my feet. I was already into the blues on guitar before I ever opened my mouth to sing it. And then, no matter where you're from or where you live, whatever music you listen to, when you sing, you're going to sound a little bit like that music.
Of course. You're going to pattern yourself after.
So yeah, and it's subconsciously more than it's consciously, I think.
But honestly, you really you captured a just authenticity, man. I'm certainly by no means am I a blues aficionado or anything like that, but I was thoroughly impressed as a vocalist, sitting there listening to you, thinking, "Wow, he's really got it. You can feel it."
That is the highest compliment.
So
that is.
All right, man. All right. Well, it's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah.
You're playing, notwithstanding. I mean, I'm watching your guitar light up in flames. Just amazing, amazing.
And you always think about the ones that you can't do yet, right? You always think about those things as like, why can't I sound like? Why can't I do this? You get distracted from what you do something.
Right.
And that happens to me daily. It happens to me in a 3-hour set. It'll happen to me 25 times.
Well, I think it happens to anybody who cares about their craft.
Yeah.
But honestly, sitting there, you know, I was literally awestruck at a lot of the stuff you were doing. So.
And then a lot of, and you know, the blues is mostly improvisational. So like you have these little diddles you can do, and you just kind of put them together, whatever the mood sees fit.
Well, okay, so here's another high compliment I'm going to pay you. It's like I was sitting there listening to. I mean, I would never put myself in your class as a blues guitarist, but I'm sitting there thinking, if I had a keyboard up there, that's the shit I'd be playing. That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean that as a compliment. So,
well, I appreciate that.
really, really cool stuff.
You know, being one of my, you know, first musical, you're like on my musical Rushmore, you know.
I appreciate
letting
that.
me walk into all those rehearsals a little late.
I appreciate that.
But yeah.
Well, we recognize talent, and we try to foster it, and we try to make it. We try to perpetuate it.
Yeah.
And one of the ways we do that is by, I have this argument with people all the time, with colleagues, because a lot of my colleagues are they want that professional distance, which I believe you should have to a degree, but I think that's something that you have to earn. It comes with respect.
Yes.
But then you cannot let that professional distance keep you from saying to a protege, is everything okay?
Yeah.
You gonna be all right?
Yes.
And also knowing when to relax, because if you're always pounding, and obviously, and I know because I'm a very demanding, I'm a very demanding musician when it comes to getting things out of people, but there are times when you just have to say, let them walk in 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
You're going to get more out of them if you do that.
Yes. I was happier.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you ever faced opposition to your musical pursuits? I love this question.
Opposition. So, obviously, oh man, this is a good question.
I love this question.
Okay. While my parents have always encouraged me to do whatever I wanted, and have always encouraged me to play music, there was a period of time where they wished that I was doing it a different way. So they threw up no opposition, but I knew that they thought I should be doing it a different way.
Now, I know what they meant.
Yeah.
You tell our listening and viewing audience.
They were like, go to college, get yourself a music degree.
Go to a conservatory.
Go to a conservatory. Go get your education instead. Go teach high school band. Which would, I originally did go to college to be a teacher.
Sure.
And it's not the kids that I didn't. It's the parents is why I didn't end up being a teacher.
Hey. Hallelujah. That's why I teach college.
Yeah. See, I probably, had I got that far, I might have. But yeah, I think they would have wanted me to be more respectful to my body over those years, and to my, everybody can look back across their life about the time they wasted doing whatever, whether it was like playing video games or being drunk or in a relationship that was going nowhere. Those are all significant wastes of time, right?
Yes.
So I feel like they viewed that as I was kind of like wasting some of my gift.
Sure.
And they were right. So, but they never threw up any opposition to my career.
And would you say that because your parents did not say, because my own parents said things to me like, "Why are you going into music? You're never going to make any money. It's, you know, you're never going to. It's, you know, people like my dad literally said to me, people like you are a dime a dozen. You can find piano players on every street corner." But obviously, that did not stop me.
Right.
Do you feel that because your parents, while they didn't directly discourage you,
Right.
Do you think because they maybe didn't do that, that enabled you to sort of encourage yourself?
Yes, it motivated me. Everything is I use as motivation, even negative, even in negative ways. You know, like my wife gave me like one of the greatest pieces of advice I've ever received, and that's like you have to stop making all your decisions out of spite. And I hadn't even realized that I was operating this way. But I was like, man, let's get them, you know? Or like,
Yeah.
And really, as soon as I listened to that one simple piece of advice, a lot of those barriers that I thought were there came down.
That is so true, man. That is so true.
You know, and so for me also, so like my wife, I'm gone all the time. She has never once been a barrier between what I want to do and
Sure.
that. And that, like, I have found the one and only woman on earth that will never.
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm pretty.
But I mean, what if she certainly could be?
She could, but
You know.
I mean, she's a musician. She plays the violin. She was, you know, first chair in high
Yeah.
school and plays in the community orchestra now.
She's a fabulous string player.
Yeah.
I've used her.
So she knows what I'm dealing with, and she's never stood in the way either. So as far as like obstacles or whatever the wording of the question was,
Well, opposition.
yeah. So I'm trying to think of other places that I could feel that opposition from, because I don't know. I think myself has been my biggest opponent this whole process, you know. So opposition from my own, you know, if you're not able to change your viewpoint, you're just gonna be stuck doing the same shit.
Right.
So like,
right.
hopefully, I think that I've evolved significantly over the last, 20 years of playing, and I have discovered that like my biggest opponent was myself.
And I'm so glad that you were able to share that with us, because often that is the only opposition you have is
Yeah.
yourself, and you don't even realize that you're the one that's
And
fighting
it was never a lack of confidence. It
Yeah.
was just maybe like a realization of like the task at hand sometimes. And if you get caught up in your, Facebook likes, you're done, man.
You are.
if
you're-
you are done.
If you're spending your career waiting for someone to pat you on the back or praise you,
That's not gonna happen.
no.
I've been lucky enough to not have to fist fight anybody over money.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That doesn't happen to every band.
No, it does not. I generally just walk away.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah.
so yeah, that was a great question.
Do you don't feel any opposition now? I mean, any more than you ever did?
Look, so no, it's better than it's ever been now. People are way nicer than they were in 1999. I've walked in some bars, just people like look at my race and like they will leave.
Right.
So, but I don't view that as opposition. Like, obviously, that's not a way to get rehired.
But also I have to look at it because it happens to me.
Yeah,
It's on them.
yeah,
You know?
and that it's a way longer conversation. But like, I've never in 2005, it was tough to play up north.
Sure. Oh, sure.
But now, it's just kind of like, I'll get the side eye. That's the thing, though. I get the side eye in the hood and in the courthouse, man. I just look weird everywhere.
And people look at you and they go, "What nationality do you think he is?" That's my
Yeah.
favorite question.
Yeah, and that's fine. And like, in no way does that bother me anymore. It used to really just burn the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Sure.
But like, now it's just I kind of view every room as a challenge. And
There you go.
and if the money's right, then
Hey, Absolutely. If I'm getting paid,
Yeah, like now, like it used to be like I've called 2-3 places to try to find a place to play. Now I got 10 people calling me trying to figure out when I can play.
right.
So
right.
that helps the heart a little bit as to like, well, actually they called me to play here, not like
Sure.
I've been trying to play here for 10 years
Right.
and this is how it's going. You know?
And my race has kept me from
Yeah,
that.
and I really hate equating my struggles with race
Sure.
to anybody else's.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because it is completely not
Absolutely.
the same thing.
Absolutely. I know. I
And
completely
people
agree.
need to realize that.
Yeah. Right.
Like my experiences in America, though not perfect, I've never felt like I was in danger.
Right. Right.
That I didn't put myself in, you know.
Sure. Sure.
But like, you know, it's not the same thing. Like racism is not. This is very not the same thing.
I get it.
So that's important
I think you're
to
right.
understand that.
Very important. Okay, so here is our final question. I think I have saved the best for last. Have you ever regretted going into music?
Not once. Music has taken me all around the country. It helped me get good grades in school. It helped me refine myself after I had to figure out how to not live in a van and not tour and not do all this. I have music for the best times and the lowest times at my fingertips and in my head. And like, it was always the very last fucking thing that I had. You know, those Grand Rapids years, I had no car. I had no job. I didn't really have my shit figured out there. We had a few gigs, but not many. So like, I literally had nothing. By choice, it wasn't like I was homeless. I had a lot of friends taking care of me for a lot of years. And I could have I always had a place I could have gone. And I'm very lucky. But some of those years were lean, you know. And I think everybody has them, but like that's at the point where I think a lot of people give up that shouldn't.
Sure.
Is in those, you know, when you're young, even when you're like up to like, I don't know if there's a number, but like to a certain point, you're young and you have a lot of time. And the time is the thing that you don't have when you get older.
Exactly.
It's not the desire.
No.
It's not the love of the game. It's the actual time.
Yeah. When you got fewer years ahead of you
Yeah.
than you have behind you,
Yeah.
which is where I'm at.
Well, I figure that I'm there too. I'm 38, but it's
Yeah.
been a hell of a 38 though.
Right. Right.
So, I think I've never once I've regretted some decisions that I made
Sure.
and some loyalties that probably I should have just kind of like taken care of myself rather than try to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
But as far as like regretting what I do or the way that I do it or regretting how I sound or even my voice, which everybody hates their voice, but like I hate my voice, you know, I hate it. But like even that, like this is just this is what I have. This is my toolbox that I have to work with, and I've always been okay with that, no matter what was in it.
Speaking as a professional with a lot of letters after my name, I don't think you should hate your voice.
Well, I appreciate that.
I think you're using it very wisely.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and I do love not singing and just playing guitar.
Sure.
But like, especially when you play blues,
I agree.
you have to sing.
I agree. It tells the complete story.
Yep.
And it's part of that delivery. So
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think it's important to myself that now, after all these years of paying the dues, I can step back and appreciate all of it.
yeah.
Especially like the bad times. And again, I'm a spoiled brat, man. My bad times, not that bad. A lot of
Right.
self-inflicted dumb shit. I always had a place I could have crawled back to with my tail jammed up my ass, you know, like my bad times were not that bad.
Sure.
Sure.
I agree. No, I get it. I get it. Thank you for being down to earth. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to talk to another musician who's been there, but also someone who's not going to approach it from the aloof side of things. And
Yeah,
you know.
I don't. Yeah, I definitely don't have anything to hide. And the way you connect with people is by making yourself available, emotionally or even,
sometimes you get stepped on.
Yes, and it, but it's part of life too. You gotta learn from that.
Working on 2 albums.
Yes, 2 albums. I have one that will be coming out. See, one's a bluegrassy Americana album, and one is a straight blues album.
Okay.
So both of them early next year, probably release. We'll do a whole release and online release and getting 500 vinyls and
Awesome.
all in the works. I'm gonna be a very tired person at the end of October, but that's what we like.
Yes. Tired but satisfied.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any last words you would like to impart on our podcast audience?
I would just say that I was very lucky along the way, and that's not lost on me. I've been very fortunate. And it's just, I'm so thankful for that, for all my friends and my parents and my fellow musicians that have kind of been part of my story. I'm very thankful for all of that.
Awesome.
So,
And you are perpetuating that.
oh yeah,
You are making it last.
Yeah, I cannot wait to, 10 more years, see what the reach is. It's
Sure. Awesome.
just getting started.
All right. Well, there we are, Mr. Erik Ryden. Thanks for watching. If you like us, please hit like. Please leave a positive comment and hit subscribe. Bye, folks.
Love makes me treat you the way that I do. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? There's nothing too good for a girl that's so true. Gee, baby, ain't I good to you? I bought you a fur coat for Christmas, a diamond ring, a Cadillac car, and everything. Love makes me treat you the way that I do.